G'day viewers, welcome back to the Midland Line in New Zealand's South Island. We're looking at the latest product from NZTS workshops, namely the New Zealand Railways Class KB, which is a mighty machine. We have a 4-8-4 wheel arrangement on this beast, 4 for the front pony, 8 for the drivers, and 4 again in the rear bogie. Now this is a bit of a special locomotive, because it's really 2 of them. 2 of them, that's right. So the first one is the main cylinders and the main driving wheels, which gives you the majority of the tractive effort of this locomotive and is the only engine available when it's speed. At low speed, there's a booster motor, which gives you another 6,000 pounds of tractive effort, and it's controlled separately to the main locomotion. Let's have a look inside the cab. First thing I like to do is get my generator going, because, let's pop out now, you can see a wisp of steam from the generator up there, because this is New Zealand and there's lots of tunnels, which means you want headlights and you want a cab light. Now why a cab light? Well, tunnels, you want to be able to read the gauges in the dark, don't you? It's all good. We've got our steam pressure gauge over here, which shows how much pressure we have in the boiler, and there's plenty because our fireman's doing well. There's plenty of water in the boiler in the water gauge here. Looking at these other gauges, we have our train brake, so the red needle is the amount of pressure in the brake cylinder, the black needle is the amount of pressure in the train pipe. The fact that the train pipe is at 80 pounds, which means it's fully charged, suggests that I have the independent brake on, which I do, which is why we've still got brake pressure in the cylinders. Over here we've got the main res and the auxiliary res pressures, and we've got a flow indicator. Essentially when the 2 needles are on top of each other, your train brake's fully charged and you're fine to go. This gauge up here is steam pressure for the booster motor. Up above here we've got the lubricator for the main driving cylinders and for the steam pump, and it's in pump only at the moment, which means that the air pump is being lubricated but nothing else is. Now you can manually adjust the number of drips per minute happening on each of the feeders if you really want to, but you don't actually have to until you get up above about 35 miles an hour. Apart from that, it's set up for you. The only thing you have to do is when you're moving or about to move like we are, you need to put it in the down position, and it's giving you a warning that we should only have it in pump only because we're not moving, which is fine, we're about to. This lubricator is the lubricator for the booster motor. Now, this takes a little while to warm up, so I'm actually going to open the steam valve, and I'm going to open the valve into the lubricator itself, so it'll take about 2 minutes to warm it up, and that's fine. We'll come back to that, and we'll come back to the booster motor, because first we just need to head down to the other end of the track down there. Next thing I want to do is open our cylinder cocks up so that we exhaust any moisture that's sitting in the cylinders, since we've just been sitting still. If you don't do that, you can blow the end caps off the cylinders. Now note, this is a pro level machine, you can break it. Our main train brake handle here is already in the running position, which is where we want it to be. So we've essentially got a bunch of notches on this thing. And speaking of notches, I need to put it in rail driver mode, where we don't actually have the notches artificially applied to us. So if you're using the keyboard or the mouse, this thing has a representation of physical notches. Now it uses the smoke box braking script, so it's quite good. Now if you're using a rail driver, you don't want that because it actually makes the brake really hard to use. You can see that our loco brake is applied over here, so we'll release that in a moment, and our train brake is just sitting in running. We'll go through the train brake a little bit more later on. We've got our regulator handle here, which is in the idle position at the moment, and we've got our drifting valve, which is off currently. The drifting valve in these locomotives means that when you're not steaming and you are moving, after all, you're going downhill a lot in New Zealand, so you'll be doing that quite a bit, you should open this up just so it lets some oil into the cylinders. It pushes a little bit of steam through there, so to carry that oil so that they don't dry out. But we're not going to need that for the moment, so let's put it back down again. Now our reverser over here, this one, is a bit interesting because it's got a catch on the side. You can't actually go into full forwards unless you lift the catch. Now we're not going to need that right at the moment because we're only light engine, so I've just moved that as far forwards as I can. Let me put on the F3 HUD so you can see what's going on. So we're at 42% forwards. If I remove that catch, which again we don't need to at the moment, but I've just done it, I can get that all the way to 75% forwards if I want to. But that'll just cause a massive wheel spin, so let's not do that. Just like I said, we're light engine and it just doesn't matter. Alright, now there's some more controls for the booster motor, but that won't be ready for a little while yet. So let's release our train independent brake rather, which is this handle, and we can watch that happening up there with the red needle. So that's going to drop down to 0 now. Very good, we're ready to go. So, whistle and let's give a bit of throttle, or regulator. And once we start moving, we can just knock that back down a bit again. You don't need very much, and we can also come back towards mid-gear a bit. Now, if we look outside, we've got our cylinder cocks open. After 4 or so revolutions, you can close those off too. Let's give it a bit of power. Because we're heading down through the station. Just cut back off now. So, technically we're moving and we're not steaming, so why don't we use the drifting valve? For this really short distance I wouldn't bother with it, but just to get in the habit. So we've now opened up the drifting valve, which means we are supplying a little bit of steam to the cylinders, which is carrying some oil, which keeps them nice and lubricated. Nothing worse than a dry steam engine. In fact, if you've ever worked on one, you'll know there's no such thing as a dry steam engine. They're just covered in oil. Every possible surface is slimy, or hot, or slimy and hot. There's not really anything else to it. So we're just cruising down through the yard so we can come back and pick up our train. The KB comes with a few other things in the pack, and 5 career scenarios, and I think there's 5 standard scenarios as well, which are the same as the career ones, but for those people that don't like career mode. And there are 2 quite good training tutorials. One simple one on the locomotive itself, which pretty much covers everything we just did, and another more complex one, which covers the booster motor. So I'm hoping to get the booster motor right for you. Let's just pop down here and watch it come through the level crossing. Why not? Still drifting along through the station. You should see the level crossing start to activate shortly. Because we're heading into the Springfield Back Shunt West, which is that little stub of track over there. That's the crossing. Got an impressive whistle. If you hold it open long enough, it does quill, or you can just give short pops as well. Jump back into the cab now, and we will use our loco brake to bring us to a stand shortly. Once we're over the yellow area on the F3 HUD there. Any time now is fine, so let's use the independent brake because we don't have a train on. Let's just jump it up to about 30 odd pounds, that'll do fine. So we've got apply and fast apply on this one. I put it into fast apply and now it's just in lap. While we wait to head back to our train. I have got a warning up on the top right there to that I should only be in pump only mode, but we're going to move again shortly, so I'm just going to ignore that completely. Now the game's already set the points for us to go back, so let's do that now. So first thing we need to do is pull the reverser back. We don't really need to go all the way back, but I have, just for the hell of it. Bit of a warning whistle. Let's release the independent brake and give it some throttle. Now if it was a cold day, you might think about opening the cylinder cocks again, since we were travelling along before, and now that we're powering, we don't really need this anymore either, so let's just close that off. And let's turn the power off because we're going way fast, and use the brake to slow down a little bit, otherwise we're going to crash into our train. So I'm just using the independent brake again. Slow us back down to a reasonable speed, because we took off like a startled rabbit. Come to a stand in a moment, and we will take off less like a startled rabbit this time. Just giving it a bit less reverse gear. And away we go. That'll do, we don't want to go too hard. You do need to bump into your train quite gently. It's best to be super gentle with your train handling when you're going into couple up, especially with the really small lightweight wagons. The bigger ones are quite manageable, but the small ones not so much. Just going to apply a bit of loco brake, slow us down some more, and bonk, there we go. Now the New Zealand couplers are a little bit tricky. Sometimes you can do them with the F3 HUD, but I find the most effective way is put the cursor on top and do Control-Shift-C, because they will always work then. See, the F3 HUD one there is going to work because it's highlighted, and you can also use the other method here. Finding the carriage you want and uncoupling or coupling as needed. Alright, so that's got us onto the train, and we will come back to this shortly. Now that the mighty KB is on the train, let's jump in the cab and get the booster engine ready for use. First thing we need to do is warm up the lubricator. So we'll open up its steam valve, and we'll open up its oil valve, and it will start warming. That'll take a couple of minutes. We'll see a message pop up when it's ready, but we can check with Control-Shift-I. You see the oiler is warming up. Good-o. While we're getting that ready, we can see, looking at our brake gauge, that the train brake is released. So we're on the 80 pounds, which means we're sitting on just the loco brake to hold us. We can open our cylinder cocks, so we will, because we want those ready. We can do a quick test on the gauge glass, just to make sure that it's reading true. And the water rose smartly in the glass. We have plenty of steam pressure. So we can start getting things ready further. So let's open the lifting catch lever, and the booster has warmed sufficiently, so that's good. We can start idling the booster now. So I've put the reverser in full forwards. I want to open the air cutout lever. Here the little booster engine has now started, and you can see the steam pressure starting to go up in its gauge up here. And if we look outside, you can see steam coming from it. So we have another couple of minutes to wait until that's actually ready. Next thing we can do is lift the catch. So this actually engages the booster with the reverser, and when the reverser comes too far, it'll knock the catch out so that you can't overuse it. Now we could take off, but I'm going to wait here and show you how to stop it when we're stationary, or start it rather when we're stationary. So we're just waiting for it to finish warming up. It's Control-Shift-O to tell us what's going on. So the booster is warming up and it's 48% ready. So a few more moments to go, Just have a look at the KB outside. You can see we've got 2 air bumps on the front there because it is a mountainous area and it needs a lot of air to maintain the braking system. It's got a massive main reservoir on it, which is sitting there above the wheels. She is a powerful beast, and I have to say, does not need the booster at all to leave this yard. But I'm here to show you how to use it, so we will. It's almost ready. Nearly there. 82% to go. Oh, is my sound gone again? I'll just have to keep recording this and hope it's not. We'll see how we go. The booster engine is now warmed and ready for use. Very good. Now, let's go in here. We want to cut it out. And watch the steam pressure drop, which it is, so that's fine. So just drop back in here. We want to put the booster engine idling valve into the running position, so that's straight up and down. And then we want to cut it in again. And you can see the booster engine clutch has been engaged, so we're ready to rock and roll with the booster engine. Okay, let's release the locomotive brake now, because that's all we were sitting here on. Big whistle. And away we go. As you can see with the booster on, leaving is rather effortless. Let's just start bringing our reverser back towards mid-gear. I've just been warned to put our lubricator on because I turned it off before. There you go. Just told me the booster engine is warmed and ready, but we already knew that. After we get through this crossing, I'll show you how to cut it out. Leave it running. And how to cut it back in when we're on the move. Keep our speed down. We're not supposed to go really quick. Anyway, let's look at how you cut it out now. First thing to do, just drop the latch and that will fall away anyway. If you pull the reverser too far, and we can bring it back to the idling position. Now that's disengaged the clutch, but it's left it running so that we can turn it back on again if we need it. So you can see it's still got steam pressure up there. If you want to actually go the whole hog and shut it down, you can also open this valve so that it's out horizontally, but we don't actually want to do that. Now, if we look outside now, there's still steam coming out of the booster because it's just idling away now. Alright, so let's cut it back in so we can actually use it. Back in here again, we put the back into the running position. You can see the clutch is being engaged, which is good. And now I'll put that booster latch cam up again. And if we power up, should be using the booster now. Now if you want to stop using the booster, one thing I should show, if you pull the reverser too far, it does actually cut the booster off by itself. So if I put that back, put the booster back on again. If you want to shut it down completely when you're running, you can do that. So you just drop the booster latch if it hasn't already dropped out of the way. Close this valve to disengage the clutch and open this one, and that'll shut it down completely. Notice after a time we should see that our pressure's dropping, and indeed it is. There we go, it's stopped. Now I'll just drop the speed, drop the throttle back a bit because I don't want to get too quick at the moment. Now you can, because the lubricator is already ready to go, we can warm the booster up again. And you'll notice it's already warmed and ready for use because it's already hot, so we can engage the clutch, put the catch back up again. We can start driving. Now if you shut it down and you leave it down long enough, you should see steam again, we do. Leave it long enough, it'll get cold and you won't be able to use it anymore. You'll have to let it warm up and go through that same warm-up process that we did in the yard. Now you do of course need to watch your speed when you're using the booster. We're coming into the downhill section now, so I'm actually going to cut it out because I don't want to kill it. I'm putting the valve back into the idling position. I'm going to leave it going though. So we've disengaged the clutch, but we're going to leave it running. So you can see there's still pressure there, and if you look outside you'll still see steam. So it'll stay warm now, and we can go quicker without hurting it. So if I want to go a little bit faster than 15 mile an hour, funnily enough, as you do, let's just race down here and get a gratuitous bridge shot. And I think we should do that without my head and without a HUD. Now we are coming uphill again. What I'll do is I'll let it lose speed and we'll cut the booster back in again and we'll use it. Now remember, if you cut the booster in above 12 mile an hour, you will damage it. So we'll just let our speed drop back down to 12 and we'll just get in here and get ready to do it. So we'll need to move the reverser forward. Just drop the little catch here. 50% will do fine, and we're down to 12 mile an hour. So let's engage the engine. So we'll put this one back into the running position again. So that's the booster engine idling valve. Remember, you've got the cutout valve down here. That one we left alone before, so we can just leave that alone again. Booster engine clutch has been engaged. So we'll put the latch up all the way, hopefully. Not here. A bit further more forward than the reverser, perhaps. There we go. And we'll start powering. You should see pressure coming up on the booster. There it goes. Just hope we don't get into a massive wheel slip, and there of course does. Just bring it back towards mid-gear so we don't get that big wheel slip. Now, we seem to have gotten away with cutting the booster in just a little bit slowly there, because you shouldn't cut it in below 6 mile an hour, but it seemed, I think it's let us get away with it. Now, the mighty KB could lift us out of this hole all by itself. It doesn't actually need the booster for this, because it's not really working very hard. It's only going up a 1 in 165. But, you know, the whole point is to show you how to use the thing. So we're about to start heading downhill again shortly. Now I could give it a lot more regulator and pick up speed a lot more quickly as well, but we don't need to. Be nice and relaxed. This is the steam age. We've reached the maximum speed for the booster now. Let's just jump back into the cab and let's drop the laps out because we don't need it now. And we will put it back into the idling position as well. You notice the booster engine clutch has been disengaged. Very good. Now we can go full bang. Should we choose to. So I've left it running again. Another crossing coming up. So you find the booster is quite handy if getting out of a pickle on a very steep gradient if you need it. Perhaps it's wet like it is now. Perhaps snowing. And I do recommend that if you get the opportunity to visit the South Island of New Zealand, you really should, because it's one of the most beautiful places in the world. Flying along in the cab now, coming into the Kauai Bush platform. So we'll just cut off while we're coming through here. Let them know we're here. In fact, why don't we go racing up there and we'll watch it come through from the station. Always highly appreciative of the fact that you can get through walls in this game. Now we're just coming up another crest at the moment, which is washing off some of our speed. Going way too fast to engage the booster, so we will not. It is still idling away though, ready for us to use. Press this little hill in a moment and go down through another little hollow. It's a very undulating route. And it has got some quite steep areas in places. Those of you who remember driving the KA may remember struggling with it to get up the hills. There were a few places where it was just a little bit tough. Cut off now because we're going downhill again. The rest of our train is cresting that grade. Now, driving in the steam era is not about running at the speed limit. It's about staying under the speed limit and making timetable. We are picking up speed as we go downhill anyway. And we're about to go over another little hump. And shortly after that little hump, we go downgrade. Which is why I'm not too worried about losing speed going up here. I'm not even trying to not lose speed, in fact. Because we have to be doing 25 miles an hour very shortly for a quite serious curve. We're probably getting a little bit too low now, so... And we've been idling for a while, so let's have the cylinder cocks. Occurs to me, I did actually forget one feature there. Let's pop into the cab. When you are drifting along downhill, you should open this, the drifting valve. It just puts a little bit of steam through to the cylinders to make sure that they stay lubricated. Because you have some very, very long downhill runs on the Midland line. Those little short ones don't matter at all. But the really long ones, you want to make sure everything stays nice and slippery. And it doesn't worry me in the slightest that we've come down to sub 10 mile an hour, because I know we're about to go down a slightly steep gradient. In fact, I'm going to cut off the throttle anyway, because we need to stay under 25 for the corner down here, because if you don't, well, you may as well change your name to Sam, because you're going to launch into space. While that's always funny, you probably won't have a terribly long railway career. After the curve, we've got a bit of a gradient where we can use the booster again, because we'll be, well, if we're slow enough, we can. We are at 43, meaning of life plus 1. So we'll just open up that valve I was talking about before. Drifting valve. As I mentioned, such a short gradient, it's really debatable whether you need it or not. But we're going to. You notice we're picking up speed quite a bit, so let's come back into the cab. Bit of train handling. Let's just do a short brake application. That'll probably do it. That's got us 20 pounds in the cylinders, and that should keep our speed reasonable. You may find as that application progresses through the train that you actually slow down a little bit. Notice the speed's jumping around a bit. That's the gradient as it goes through. So I'm pretty happy with that. We'll be fine for the 25 corner. So when you're driving a train, you need to be pretty aware of the route. You need to build up some knowledge. You also need to have situational awareness of what's coming up next and what's coming up around you, so that you're ready for it. We're going a little bit quick, so I will just pop in and apply a little bit more brake. Let's see how that goes. Still climbing, give it a little bit more. We've gotten around the evil corner anyway, so I'm not too worried. Now we're starting to come down in speed again. But we're also about to start going uphill, and we're well and truly around the evil corner. So I will actually release the brakes and just put them into the running position. And that's pumping the brake pipe back up, and that should release the brakes shortly. There we go. It is very finicky with the rail driver, with the brake handle positions. You won't have those issues with the keyboard. Or moose, should you choose to use it. Now I know I did tell you before there's a feature for the rail driver about turning the notches on or off, so you can do that to your heart's content. You may find it you like it better with the notches off regardless, whether you're using rail driver or not. Bit of a personal taste thing. We're coming to a short uphill section shortly where we'll re-engage the booster, so I'll have to deliberately slow down for that when we do. Yet another tunnel on the New Zealand Midland Line. Nice and steamy in here. Quick break in the tunnels here as we go into the next one. Now started up that gradient I was talking about. So I'm just going to let the speed drop and when we get down below 12 mile an hour. Remember, you have to, if you're engaging the booster on the move, it must be between 6 and 12 miles an hour. So we left it idling because we knew we were going to need it. You can just shut it down, and you'll have to wait 2 minutes for it to warm up again when you do that. But that is your choice as driver. I find most of the time with most trains, the KB's got more than enough grunt to actually pull the train without the booster, but there are some situations where you may find yourself wanting it. Now remember, it only works in the forwards direction. You cannot use it when you're going backwards. Bad things, TM, happen. Alright, our speed's coming down. So we should start getting ready. Now this lever is already in line with the pipe, so we're still cut in, as you may recall. obviously back out of the tunnel again because it suddenly got light. So coming off the gradient, so we don't really need it at all, but we're going to do it anyway because, you know, I want to show you. So we will have to put the reverser much further forward, so let's just do that while we're waiting. 56 will be fine. And we're going to open this valve when we're slow enough to get down to 12 or less. At this rate, we're going to run out of hill before I get to show you. It's kind of funny. 12 miles an hour, very good. So we open that up, the booster clutch has been engaged. Now we lift the latch cam, and away we go. And we should see the pressure rising in the booster, there it goes, come up to 200. And we're now stomping. Need to give the booster a little bit more oil because I'm making it work hard. So let's just pop in and show you how to do that. Just want to open this valve just a little to the left. Left is moresy, right is lessy. Does that make sense? Doesn't really, does it? We are getting just a little bit quick for our booster. So let's go through how to actually shut it down completely when we're in motion now. So you drop the catch away, come back over into our little spot, bring it back into the idling position, if it'll stay there, there we go, and just drop the air valve so that it's not in line with the pipe anymore, and that has shut the booster down. And then we can fang on. The booster is now off. You can see there's no steam coming out the back, and if you look at the pressure gauge, it's also at 0. And off we go, storming up the hill. Now that we're allowed to do more than 15 mile an hour, it's much more fun. Anyway, that's it for this tutorial, so I hope this has been useful for you. We've had a look at the booster, we've looked at getting it started when we're stationary, getting it started when we're moving, we've looked at putting it back to idle when we're moving, and shutting it down completely when we're moving. Shutting it down when you're stationary, it's the same, exactly the same procedure. Now, given that we have shut it down, if you use it quickly enough, you don't need to warm it up again. It'll pop up a warning and it'll say, it's too cold, I can't do it, laddie. And then you need to warm it up again. If you want to shut down the rest of the way, you can also stop the oil valve in its lubricator. So we're not going to use it again, so I'll shut down the lubricator. You can leave that on. You do risk running out of oil, of course. And we don't need the drifting catch on at the moment because we are powering. So let's just pull that back down again. I lifted that before and I completely forgot about it and just left it up there. Alright, yet another tunnel. What a surprise. Tunnels on the Midlands line. I almost said something else then. I almost talked about something in English. We won't do that, because this is New Zealand. Oh, when we pop out of this tunnel, we will go for a gratuitous outside shot and watch the train recede into the distance, and we'll call it quits for this tutorial. Alrighty, I hope this has been useful for you. Thanks heaps for watching. If you've got any questions about the KB, give me a yell. You can also join the TSNZ Discord if you want to. I can pop a link in the chat if people are interested on my streams. I think I'm allowed to invite you to that. Pretty sure it's public. Anyway, I might just check that. So I won't put one in the description just yet. I will check that. Make sure it is a public one. But anyway, all good. Have fun, folks. Enjoy yourselves. And see you later.